Hi, Mr. Mayor. I wondered if I could ask you about any communications you've been having with the Trump campaign about this rally or otherwise, and if you believe, as others have said, that the former president is a fascist.
You know, I have been had those terms hurled at me by some political leaders in the city, using terms like Hitler and fascist. My answer is no. I know what Hitler has done, and I know what a fascist regime looks like. I think, as I've called over and over again, that the level of conversation, I think we could all dial down the temperature. And I've heard people say that the former president should not be able to have a rally in Madison Square Garden. I strongly disagree. This is America. This is New York. And I think it's important that we allow individuals to exercise their right to get their message clear to New Yorkers. And our job as a city and as a police department is to make sure they can do that in a peaceful way. I think that we must be extremely cautious. The heat we turn up today, pre-election, is going to have to be the heat we're going to have to govern it. And I think we need to show a level of respectable communication. And so when people called me fascist and other terminologies, I didn't like it. And I don't think it's fitting to anyone to state that the former president is equal to being Hitler. I just think that this is a city where we have the largest Jewish population. Anti-Semitism is on a rise nationally. We need to do everything we can to push back on that level of anti-Semitic tone and anti-Semitic issues that we're facing in the city. Let's have a safe, fair, democratic process and show the globe how we're able to do it correctly.
And I agree with him 100%. They want nothing more than to try to label President Trump and soon to be the new president of the United States of America, 45-47. They want nothing more than to get anybody that they can, especially over in New York, to then label him a certain way and say that he's fascist. A lot of people don't even know what the term of the word is, and they just started using it. I've seen Charlamagne say it, and he says it on every stop and every interview, and he's on a campaign trail for Kamala Harris. And they use his word, and I've seen Kamala Harris actually say this and use this word and try to make it out to be like he's this dictator. When first, we know what his presidency was like in 2016 through 2020. We know that he left the White House peacefully when he handed the keys over to Biden. And the entire time, and let me tell you how fearful the Democratic Party was. The entire time, for the last 3.5 years since they've gotten in office, they've been chasing Trump the entire time. They had already planned, and this is my personal opinion based off of the evidence and what I've been observing over the last 3.5 years. They had already planned and had been observing Trump and making sure, or trying to ensure, which they failed on all fronts, that he would never, ever be able to become president ever again, because they knew that their movement was going to fail. And so the first thing that they had to do was they had to try to kill his reputation, which they're still trying to do today, all the way up until Election Day. And so they tried to kill his reputation by first throwing a bunch of charges on him in New York and then throwing a bunch of charges on him down in Georgia. And Letitia James over in New York, who they're largely rumoring to at some point trying to succeed Mayor Adams, because we know that Eric Adams is now facing charges because it would seem as though he's not going along to get along anymore. And the minute that he started to revolt against the migrant crisis that had been being pushed inside of the United States of America, in which they flooded the entire United States with millions, tens of millions of migrants, that's when you started to see him have problems. And then after that, you have Letitia James, who, again, put all of these crazy charges, which the appeals court is basically criticizing the prosecutors right now. And they're saying, this is crazy. The banks didn't lose any money. Trump and them didn't lose any money. Nobody was offended. Why did y'all even bring these charges in first? Do y'all know what they're appealing and what's working out in his favor over in New York? Do you even know what the charges were? Don't worry, I'll tell you. They're saying that he inflated the value of his companies to take out more equity and more loans with the banks. And then it was unjustifiably enriching himself by being able to invest more in the companies itself, by being able to take more money out of the banks. The bank said, we don't even know what the hell you're talking about. Trump paid us all of our money with interest, and he's a great businessman. So the banks never had a complaint. Nobody ever had a complaint except for the state of New York, which we know that New York has traditionally been blue. Trump did just recently sell out the garden, though. And then down in Fulton County, where he has these 91 pending charges, we all know that Nathan Wade was recently questioned and he was paid a consultant's fee of $250 per hour, his consultant's fee, in order to go and meet at the White House, but he don't remember what the meeting was. With the Department of Justice too. And then once it came out that Fani Willis, which is the Fulton County District Attorney, was having an affair, or he was having an affair with Fani Willis, we wound up finding out that if you go and look at on public information, the White House logs of who visited the White House prior to them filing charges against Trump, Fani Willis and the mayor of Atlanta, Andre Dickens, who's good friends with Kamala Harris, actually met, it says on the logs, with the Vice President of the United States of America. And so they threw all of these false charges, and they've been persecuting him this entire time in order to what? Kill his reputation. And it doesn't stop. And that's why they're starting to label him. Then they're saying he's a fascist. He wants to overthrow the government. When, where, why, and how? We have layers and protection. Literally, we have multiple different layers of legislative bodies, the Senate, the Congress, so on and so forth. And you can't even get anything passed without getting Congress on your team and it being a bipartisan agreement across both sides of the aisle. But because they have no policy to stand on, because they're trying to take over what it is that you feel instead of standing on economic policy, immigration policy, and the main campaign rhetoric, the two things that they try to push to you is these two things. Bad man Trump, because they talk more about Trump than they talk about themselves, and reproductive rights, which is women's ability and right to destroy whatever is inside of them once they get pregnant instead of doing preventative maintenance. And so when we start to pay attention to this, and now, they're asking Eric Adams, but because Eric Adams is not a part of the Good Old Boy Network, I believe that Eric Adams has two reasons to do this. Number one, I don't think that he likes Biden. Number two, I actually believe that he aligns more with the Republican Party and Trump because he's seeing what it did to his state, especially when it came to the immigration. Y'all let me know what y'all think inside of the comments. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Also, Teach Hanley, 40% off your first order plus 20% off of life. And then last but not least, come and kick it with me in Atlanta this weekend. It's going to be a hell of a time. I love you. I appreciate you. Let me know what y'all think inside of the comments.